Brimming with a mystery that slowly unfolds and develops like an excellent box set, Control is one of the best narrative experiences in years. It also has cinematography that most films would kill for, and a standout central performance. Not only that, but it manages to tell this story through consistently entertaining gameplay sequences and some of my favourite third-person action in modern gaming. Control is the story of Jessie, a mysterious woman with an otherworldly being by her side, as she searches for her missing brother. Her search leads her to the Federal Bureau of Control, a shadowy Orwellian cabal of well-meaning smiles and 50s decor. The FBC is housed in the oldest building, a shape-shifting tower in the heart of New York City, that's bigger on the inside to a degree that would make the Doctor jealous. Seeking out her missing brother, Jessie soon finds herself in the role of the Director, a nebulous title given to the head of the FBC, and about the least subtle metaphor the game throws out. In her exploration, she discovers the building has been taken over by the Hiss, a dangerous paranormal entity that can reanimate the dead, distort reality, and do its very best to murder Jessie at every opportunity. Its power is linked to several everyday objects that the FBC has been studying, including one that Jessie and her now missing brother discovered themselves. Jessie quickly discovers that a perk of her new role is a shape-shifting gun that is pretty adept at destroying any Hiss that decide to impede her path. This also forms one half of the game's combat system. The gun is paired with various abilities that Jessie discovers throughout the game. These include things like telekinesis, super speed, flight, and the ability to control enemies. The combat in the game is at its best when it gives players the opportunity to combine these abilities with the gun in order to feel extremely powerful. The ability to force push and pull objects at will, known as launch, was my favourite to use throughout the game, and I quickly set about upgrading it to the fullest, ripping rooms to pieces, throwing every chair, table and bit of old painting I could at any enemy not fast enough to bolt. The environments in the game are also pretty destructible, so there's a real sense of causing chaos when you drop into a group of unsuspecting enemies and launch half the interior design at them. My only critique of this being that because it's one of the first things you learn and it's so effective, I found very little need to experiment with the other options. Also, there were variations of the gun that I didn't even craft until I'd finished the game, as I was having so much fun just throwing chunks of concrete through the air like I was conducting the world's most violent orchestra. While you may find yourself using one ability a lot more than others like I did, the game does a pretty good job of letting you use multiple abilities in conjunction with each other. For example, if I pick up an object ready to throw at an enemy, I can then fly up into the air and levitate towards that enemy to get a better angle, all while maintaining my control of the object and then eventually crack them with it. It feels utterly fantastic. This all crescendos in a sequence in the game's back half that I won't spoil, but I will say that I think people are going to be talking about it in the same reverent tones they spoke about the bullet time sequence in Titanfall 2, and there's not much praise higher than that. It's worth mentioning that in some of the more visually impressive fight sequences where bodies and neon lights are flying about like a rave during an earthquake, the frame rate tends to get scared and flee for a few moments. Also, a few times during the game when I would unpause it, I would completely lose all control. While it seemed to catch up, it was a bit like it had been woken up in the middle of an exam. Apart from those, I had very few technical issues with the game despite its impressive visuals and very physics heavy environments. It's a pretty ballsy move to call your game Control, because if they were terrible, you'd have just written the strapline to every hack like me's review for the rest of time, but they're brilliant. All the abilities fit into a few buttons, and that's while maintaining traversal and a steady aim of the gun, and that's without having to contort all your fingers around the controller like you're trying to see how quickly you can break them. The game has a series of main missions that will further the plot and give you a good indication of what's going on in the wider world of the FBC, but what Remedy does so well here is reward players by following up on the several side missions that appear as you progress. They're rich with story, and by the time they'd started to appear more frequently, the mystery had its hooks in me so deep that I spent a good hour going around and talking to everyone I could, trying to wring another piece of the puzzle out of them. In a mystery game, it's essential that players are given the opportunity, should they want to invest time to learn more about what's happening than the game is willing to provide through the mandatory exposition. Control does that very well. Audio logs and their contemporaries have developed a bit of a stigma due to some developers using them instead of bothering to put an actual story in their game, and I'm looking at you, every Bioshock clone from the last decade. But when used effectively, they let players essentially decide how much story they want. I picked up every one I passed, and while I didn't read or listen to every single one of them, but if a character's name popped up that I wanted to learn more about, I was greeted with this really well fleshed out bit of world building that Remedy is just so good at. They were great at it in Alan Wake as well. Control feels like the storytelling evolution of Alan Wake that I've been waiting for since 2010. The game isn't immensely long, it's maybe 15 hours if you go back and do absolutely everything, but there's very rarely any downtime. The only times I found myself bored was when trying to navigate through the building to an objective. There's no marker, so you just have to use the map, and some of the more MC Escher-like floors can become a bit of a pain, but if that's the only downtime in a game that I basically couldn't stop playing, it's not that bad. In the opening 30 minutes of Control, there are more single frames that deserve to be hung in a museum than most games get in their entire playtime. Much like how the game's narrative plays out like a great TV drama, it's a cinematographically stunning achievement that deserves to be played on an IMAX screen if possible. It uses a combination of stellar in-game graphics with some full motion video layered over it to create a look that's unique while also managing to pay homage to its influences. It's safe to say that Remedy's love affair with David Lynch isn't over. Control is an excellent game that sets up its world with flair, constructs an interesting character, and gives the player an endlessly fun arsenal of options, all within its opening hours. It creates a world that is deep and intricate both physically in the oldest building and textually through its abundance of supplementary world building that can be found in practically every room. It manages to be substantial enough that you feel like you've earned a resolution, but doesn't overstay its welcome. It's practically begging for a sequel, and I truly hope Remedy gets to make it, because what they've managed to create here is extremely special and something I'll be thinking about and replaying for some time. Thanks for watching this review of Control. Let me know in the comments if it's a game that you think you're going to pick up, and remember to subscribe to BBC The Social Gaming. Until next time, I'm Jordan Midler. See you later.